Welcome everyone to another round of Akashic Answers with Emily. I am bringing such an amazing guest on to join me here today. Reuben, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here too. So everyone who is joining us, you just caught a glimpse of the video marketing, the trailers that we are using to promote the incredible event into Mount Shasta happening next week. This is the first large experience that I'm going to be leading in person. So it's a major up-leveling for me as a leader. And I'm so excited for not only the work we will do for the planet, but the guests who are joining me, the powerful light workers who are joining me on this experience have very big missions to do here on the planet. So I wanted to bring on a very special expert, a guest who has had not only firsthand experience with communicating with the interdimensional realms and extra-dimensional realms, but he has also created a life where he shows up and shares with other people on the planet how to not only shift their energy and tap in, but also beginning to open up the dialogue about what does it mean to have these kind of visceral experiences with non-human beings. And I have been getting signs and confirmations for a few years now that this is going to be happening at Mount Shasta. That the guests who are coming with me on this adventure are going to have visceral interactions with these beings. So I had to bring the guy who knows all about this, Mr. Reuben Langdon, who is here. Reuben is not only a host on Gaia TV, but he also has a really powerful YouTube channel where you've been interviewing people for many years now. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been sort of been in the ET peanut butter, I call it, for a little over a decade. And then I started with just sort of, as I was saying prior to the interview here, we're going live, started with the nuts and bolts ufology, guys like Richard Dolan and Linda Moulton Howe and Stanton Friedman, who's passed now, but these guys were sort of the crowd I was hanging around with, the researchers and the military, whistleblowers, and Dr. Stephen Greer, all these guys. That was the crowd I was in, and well, I guess it's still sort of in it a little bit, but been researching and looking at the evidence and then interviewing contactees. I was just really fascinated with the whole idea of an extraterrestrial and what is that, and how does, how do they get here, and all of the, basic questions we start asking when we're starting to come upon the evidence and the material. And I started hitting roadblocks in the sense of looking at the evidence, seeing that there was, for the most part, a very positive message, a very positive experience that was coming from these interactions. However, there was a lot of people, especially in that world, that even though the evidence showed that it was more of a positive thing than a negative thing, a lot of that community tend to hang on to the idea of this is nefarious, or this is something, they're doing something to us, and it's against our will, and especially when you talk about the abduction or temporary detainment phenomenon. And that just didn't set well with me when I was looking at evidence based on, that the narrative that was sort of being pushed by a lot of the old school ufology folks. Great researchers and great people, but it wasn't, I needed more. And then I started investigating. I met Wendy Kennedy and Nora Harold, and they used to come to, and Daryl Inca used to come to my ET meetup groups that I had at my studio, at a visual effects studio in Marina Del Rey. And we'd have Tuesday night ET media group meetups, and they shared a little bit of their story. They were very humble and didn't I had no idea Daryl was even a channel or a Bashar, Bashar. I didn't know who that was. He just said, yeah, I've had some experiences, and I'm just here to listen. And we had guest speakers and different people from the sort of that old school UFO group or groups. And then one day after the meetings, I was hanging out with Wendy, and she said, I was asking her about her abduction, separated entertainment experiences, and she said they told her it was a soul contract. And then that's when the light went off in my head. I was like, soul contract, whoa, what is that? You got to tell me what that is. That sounds like it fits. And then she said, well, yeah, I'm a channeler, and I have, maybe you should talk to the Palladians, and maybe, you could get more information. I'm like, what? You could do that? I had, I'd heard about channeling before. When I was young, I kind of had just thrown it into the crazy camp and didn't really pay much attention to it. And then I started listening to some of this channeled material that was coming from, folks like Nora, Daryl, and Wendy. Yes. And it's everything sort of fit as far as all the missing pieces that I had gotten so far with the evidence-based material. Then I started asking these questions, doing these interviews, and then recording them, because I thought it was such a wealth of information that needed to be shared with the masses. So I actually started back in 2014 was my first interview with Wendy. And then it's just been the personal journey of me recording these interviews, documenting it, putting them out there on YouTube or Vimeo. And then it was 2 years ago, Gaia caught wind and said they wanted to host my show on their channel. Yeah. So I was just like, talk about, like Bashar says, follow your excitement. I was just doing it with no expectations. Truly was how I was just doing it as a filmmaker, as a investigator, and interest. I wasn't making any money on it. I was just simply doing it to put it out there because I enjoyed it. And then Gaia ordered, after the first season aired last year, I guess the show was so successful, it was the #1 show on Gaia last summer.
I didn't know that part. That's
yeah. And I was just like, what? You've got Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden and all these heavy hitters, and my show, my little teeny show is outperforming those guys. So it was kind of like, wow, cool. And then they came back and they said, well, can you do a second season for us? And I was like, yeah, sure. I had already been archiving a couple of interviews, with, again, no expectations, just because I enjoy doing it. So I just held off instead of releasing those right away. I held off and then sort of packaged this, what Gaia, we worked together to sort of package a season 2. And then that's what just finished airing, actually, like last week or 2 weeks ago. We just aired the last episode of season 2. So now it's like, okay, where do you go from here? Season 3, maybe, Gaia?
You get to create it. You get to imagine it and create it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like. So, I'm in a big creation phase right now too. I feel it. I'm like, ooh, what do I want next year to look like? Let's figure out how we call in that timeline.
Yeah, I was definitely, yes. Even in our political arenas and things like that. What can we? A third party that nobody's talking about. So that's something too. I was just envisioning this morning, actually, before the call. I was like, how can I hold this third party vision, a third candidate that hasn't shown itself yet? But
it's got to be an intergalactic candidate, Reuben. That's the only obvious answer. And how we rejoin the Galactic Federation. Like this is, I think it's important though to have conversations like this that are light, but they stretch the limits of your imagination.
Absolutely.
And considering what is possible here on the planet. I love it. Okay, I see Melinda and Tammy out here and Rhonda, who are on the itinerary to come to Shasta with us. If you are one of the attendees coming to Shasta, say hello out there. Let us know who's coming. And if you're not coming, let's get some hearts, some love for Reuben going across the screen here, everybody. And I also want to invite you to share this out. One of the most important things that we can do during times of massive transformation is to share this spiritual-based knowledge, this kind of a conversation, this kind of an open conversation that pushes the limits of what is possible. And this is a fun place to be and talk about what is possible when we talk about like bringing in the extraterrestrials and the interdimensionals and allowing them to become part of our political system. It feels like a bit of a stretch right now, but there's so much conflict and pain going on our planet right now as we are resolving our own inner conflict, as we are taking a look inward and seeing where we're being mean to each other, where am I being mean to myself, where am I not tolerating myself. All of our shit is coming up and being collectively projected into the holographic experience that we're having. And it's really important to remember your imagination during these times, that we are building and we are constructing what the new grid looks like, what the new earth looks like. So when we are having conversations and contemplating wild, crazy things, like Saint Germain walking down the mountain and meeting us there in Panther Meadows in Shasta, it's important to embrace that as part of our growth process. And it can seem so silly. And one of the reasons that I wanted to bring you here, Reuben, I'm a huge fan of Gaia TV. I watched you before you were on Gaia, and then I'm flipping through Gaia. I'm like, oh, look, there's Reuben. How cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
I've seen, you're welcome, almost every episode. One episode in particular that caused me to reach out to you was the gentleman, and you guys were in Sedona, and it was like you were in a valley somewhere, and he had kind of long hair, and he's a musician and I think he might have been a filmmaker, storyteller, somewhat in Sedona too, and he talked about we're moving from the first wave of contact where the remembrance is coming alive into the second wave.
Gabe Solomon.
And what was his name again? Remind me.
Gabe Solomon.
Gabe Solomon, giving you a shout out because you showed up as a confirmation for me in my world. And when Gabe began to talk about how, as we're moving into this second phase of contact, beings and collectives will be revealing themselves to not only individuals, but also groups of individuals. And my whole heart just lit up. I'm like, he's talking about Shasta. I know it. And that's when I reached out to you, and I'm so happy that you responded and that you're spending time here today with me and my community. Thank you very much. And sharing with us some of your experience in this world. So talk to us, tell us what some of the good stories you have about either your personal interaction or people that you've interviewed.
Wow. Well, Gabe, definitely, I reached out to him. He'd sort of been on my radar he had been producing these on his own YouTube channel, these really creative, fun videos using some special effects and a guy in an alien costume, and he's sort of having these interactions and sharing a lot of the same messages that I enjoy sharing that come from these channel material, from these different beings or channelers who channel these extra dimensional beings or collectives that carry this message. And I think, you're carrying this message on your show, and it truly is this idea that we're going through this time of ascension, where we're evolving as a species, as individuals. We're sort of moving past this old story that we've told for thousands of years to this new story. And that seems to be the through line with all of this. There's different people with different messages, but that in a nutshell, I think that's the base story of my show. If I were, I've been considering, wrapping it all up and seeing if I could make a movie out of all of these interviews. And I, there's a lot of nuggets in there for individual self-empowerment. But the big sort of through line is what's happening on the planet right now is this ascension, and disclosure or contact is a big part of this this evolutionary step that other civilizations have gone through, and we're in this moment, this transition, and it doesn't happen overnight. A lot of people are like, oh, we're just going to wake up and the space aliens are going to be there.
Mhm.
But it's a transition, as Gabe mentioned. It starts with individuals, then pockets of individuals, groups, and then eventually, all of the entire planet will be privy to, and not only privy, but having their own interactions. But it starts, with the individual, and I'm not sure of your past experiences and connections, but since jumping in and doing this work, in a sense, doing the personal growth,
Yes.
then I've had interactions. I've done a lot of plant medicine ceremonies with ayahuasca, and I've had interactions with those. But outside of those, I've had a couple of experiences where I've had meetings with other beings, more in a telepathic sense, and they've shared information with me to accelerate my growth, in a sense. So I think we just have to be open to that, to those interactions. And it's very, I can share some of my personal experiences, but it is really personal, and it sort of depends on where we're at with our own individual evolution. And the messages that come through can all, of course, be applied and shared with the collective. And that's sort of what I do with my show. And I try to keep my show and the questions in a more general, broader, bigger questions. Sometimes I get a little personal, depending on where I'm at with, what's happened a few days leading up to that interview.
Right.
And, I think we all are on our own individual journeys, and there's aspects of those journeys that, of course, we can share with each other, and different people will resonate. And there seems to be, with the popularity of my show now, there seems to be a bigger resolution or resonation. Yes, resonation.
We can make up words here, by the way. I do it.
We can make up words. Perfect. Resonation. Yes.
I keep a glossary of them. So when I publish the first book, the made up word glossary will be in the back waiting for everyone.
Excellent. I just yesterday, speaking of glossary, I just had a conversation. I'm getting my show's being translated. Many volunteers have stepped up from Japan, China. I just had someone from Poland reach out, and France, and also in some Spanish-speaking countries. Have all volunteered to translate my show into all these different languages, because they say, the information is so great, we want to get it out there. So, but one of the translators suggested that I create a glossary page on my website, because a lot of the terms, when you're in it, and it's been, for me, this gradual 5-year journey, 6-year journey, and you just sort of take for granted some of these terms.
Yes.
And a lot of these people who are just coming onto this coming across this information, it's like a big slap in the face. It's like, whoa, what is he talking about? It sounds cool, but I just don't know what is a density, what is different dimensions and realities, higher self, and soul contracts, and these kinds of terms.
Yes.
What does that mean? So I realized, oh yeah, we need a glossary. We need to a shortcut for people, interview with Ed for dummies,
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. I'm so far down the rabbit hole that I forget that I use words and phrases that the mass majority of the collective doesn't use yet.
I think we all, when we're in this, for as long as we've been, we do tend to forget, but it's a good reminder.
Yeah, so, I tell my kids to go out and go get a download anytime they're having a problem.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. And then people are like,
weird in our house.
Where do you get that? Can you go to the store and get that, or what's? I want some downloads.
Yeah, when I first started doing the Akashic record work, my mom was very excited for me. She was sharing with a nice gentleman in Starbucks that her daughter was learning how to read the Akashic records, and he wanted to know where he could go to do that. Where could he go to read the records?
I want some Akash.
Yeah, right.
Can you put that in my smoothie? Mix it in with the coffee.
So tell us about the most recent interaction you had. If you share your most recent interaction, I'll share mine. Deal?
Interaction in well, I was on a call yesterday actually with a sort of up and coming channeler named Gavin, and he brought in these beings. They don't have a name, and we were sort of chatting. And I would say that's probably the most recent interaction, just in the sense because we were talking about physical interactions. Okay, what do you desire in this, and what is a physical interaction, and what is all of this? And they sort of reminded me that I was doing it. I was actually interacting with extra dimensional beings through a Zoom call like this, and it's happening. It's happening on a daily basis on my show and everything. So I'm already doing it, just to be more present with that and stop projecting and okay, I want to interact with these beings. And we have this projection, this idea that it has to be in this physical sense.
Yes.
And what that does is it takes us out of the current now moment. And this is sort of my take from that conversation. This is not exactly the exact conversation, but basically with our interactions going back and forth, it was all about, they were trying to teach me to be more present, and not project so much into the future or into this idea of a physical contact, because that's sort of setting up putting the expectations, insistence on the outcome, as Bashar says, and sets us up for a potential letdown, and then both the insistence and the letdown take us away from being in the present moment.
Yes. So synchronous, because that was my last interaction too, was very similar. I'm just going to jot down because I have a couple things to say about this and I want to forget both pieces. So it was maybe the story I'm going to tell you guys happened last Friday. I truly believe that the more present we are, the more awareness we have of this is happening all the time. We're always exchanging some kind of information with the field. So that's another reason that it's so important to slow down and get present, is just so you can know that it's happening to you, because we're missing so many of the interactions that are happening because our mind is in too many places, too many dimensions at once. So getting present and focus is really important. But the expectation of what it means to have a visceral interaction, they've been reconciling that within my own frequency, because I feel like, me and my people, we're going to have this amazing experience. But yet, even when I describe it playfully to you and to the audience, I talk about Saint Germain walking down the mountain. It might not look like that. So last Friday, I went outside. It was just a little after sunrise, and I could start to see the clouds in the sky. And I noticed there are these two ginormous saucer-shaped clouds, one big mothership and then a smaller one. And I immediately felt the connection to my Pleiadian ancestors. So, Pleiadian ships out there. But the human Emily, it was like the 5D Emily was like, oh, what's up? Pleiadian ships, good. But the human Emily was still like, are they ships out there? Are they really out there? So I went back out 20 minutes later outside to look up. Yep, they're still there. 4 hours they stayed there, Reuben.
Wow.
If there were clouds, they would move, right? Yeah. So I have all kinds of fun toys here in my office. I have a pendulum. I play with this pendulum regularly, and you guys will see it start going. It basically moves in a counterclockwise motion. I picked up my pendulum and began to use it, and it was swinging all kinds of wonky, not doing anything that it normally does here. And at that point, I was like, okay, they're out there. They're obviously waiting for me. They've been out here in between my last 4 calls. They're still out there. I need to go sit outside and download information. So I went and put myself into a really deep state of meditation and started calling in insight and support from Mount Shasta. But the amazing things that I realized after the fact were, one, they're dealing with me about what my expectations are when it comes to physical, visceral contact, because that was it. It didn't look like me physically interacting with another being. But I recognized also, and this was the second thing that I wrote down that I wanted to talk about, the importance of not triggering the fear that is still undealt with in me.
That was a huge part of my talk yesterday too.
Right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after the experience was kind of over where all of a sudden I was like, well, oh shit, I wasn't scared at all. Because there is a construct based on what we've seen in Hollywood movies and based on how but based on how we have been fed the story, that's scary. When these beings come in and take us against our will, what feels like that. And I did have some interactions as a child that I understand more now, but I didn't understand them as a child, where I feel like there was a partial abduction. What did you call that? What was the other thing you called them besides abductions?
Temporary detainment.
Yes. I think I was temporarily detained.
Obviously, you're here now to share this experience, experience with us. So.
But I remember being fearful of that. And I knew right where the portal was. Intuitively, I knew where it was. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew as a little girl, like I wanted to sleep with my dad on the couch in the living room because he fell asleep on the couch every night. But it was running down my hallway in the dark. Sometimes I made it to the couch where he was, and sometimes it was like I just lost consciousness, went out, and woke up the next day in the bed. And so I'm at that place for myself where I'm beginning to bridge that gap of what does it look like to invite this experience back in a very peaceful way that doesn't trigger all that fear. Because if we trigger fear, that in essence pollutes the holographic matrix that we're all experiencing.
Yeah, the fear aspect yesterday was actually that was the part. I forget what part of the conversation, but for me, the being I was interacting with was trying to coach me in a sense of, okay, what to bring me back to, because I know I've had physical interactions in the past, but in my only memory of those, and I was sort of explaining to him that one of the blockages perhaps that my memory, I can't recall those, but the closest I've gotten is I have memories of this presence, and it's getting closer, and then the energy is so intense that I then just black out. And it's a combination of excitement, fear, like electricity type feelings, almost just intense. I don't know if fear would be because it's not all fear, it's just intense. And then I black out, and that's the closest memories I've had of that physical interaction experience. And they were trying to bring me back to that moment in a meditation, and then working not past it, but just working with that energy and using that as a tool to reinitiate the contact and to go into that fear and to go into that emotion. So fear is a big part of it, because we always fear the unknown. We always fear what we're not used to. We're comfortable, believe it or not, or actually you guys in your audience probably can understand this. Look out into the reality right now, into this extreme polarization that we're seeing on the planet. We had a choice when we went into quarantine with COVID to embrace this downtime, right? And many of us did. I started gardening.
Yes.
A lot of people were, doing the work at home and sort of meditating more and using this downtime in a positive way. Many people chose to go into the other polarity, right? Which was the fear, the conspiracies, the vaccination things. There's a lot of stuff coming out, which I think was beneficial as far as waking up the collective, for people who haven't gone down that conspiracy path and uncovered, the reality of how the world, how it used to work, because it's no longer working in that way. But a lot of people got caught up in the fear.
Yeah.
And I think we did because it's comfortable. It's a we're used to going to the movies and getting scared out of our minds.
Yeah.
We're used to being told, that God is this fear-bearing being that's going to punish you if you do things in a certain way. It's a very comfortable, feeling, fear. The unknown is, what's that? That's even more scary. That's like, I don't even know. I'm comfortable just being scared with my things that I know I'm scared of,
Yes.
So that was unfortunately a big part of humanity decided to go into this fear, and the discrimination and this idea of haves and have-nots. That's a comfortable feeling of I know where that is. In reality, the real emotion I think that most people are feeling is this fear of the unknown, this fear of we're moving into a world where money isn't like it used to be, where transportation isn't like it used to be, where we care for each other in different ways. This competition is not what it used to be.
Family dynamics, for that matter, and how we reproduce even is shifting and changing, right?
Relationships, all of it is changing so rapidly, and there's this unsettling, unconscious fear. But nobody really knew how to. Not nobody. Many people knew how to address it, but many people didn't know how to address that uneasiness. So now we're given a Black Lives Matter, a COVID, or we're given these directions to focus this fear, and everybody's jumping on the bandwagon.
Yes.
Because, conspiracy theories, whatever it is, and that's the outlet that's happening. So we're having this comfortability, another word, maybe it's comfortable ability to focus our fears in one direction, and then others are using this as an opportunity to go deeper, and we're having these conversations and to communicate directly. It's like, I don't need to go through a channeler. I can just tune in, and now I can start having and looking for the signs, the clouds, the small, the little things, the subtle things. Oh, there's something, this universe is talking to me. I just have to pay attention and be more present and look for this, as opposed to get caught up in the craziness, all that stuff that's going on right now. So it's this extreme polarities that are happening simultaneously. And then a lot of people are just, taking the middle ground, just like, all right, something's weird. I'm just going to wait this out and see what happens.
Yeah. So we're getting so close to Shasta. It's happening next week. Can you give us some powerful tips to prepare ourselves for the best experience?
I have not been to Shasta. That's on my list. I'm planning to go this year, actually. Trip later in the year, maybe August-ish. But I have been on several sort of contact retreats, and I did one. I produced and put one on just before the shutdown. We were actually in Hawaii. We just finished. A few days later, the shutdown happened. And it was almost like we ushered it in. All our little group our little contact group, we're like, did we make this happen? Did we cause the world to shut down so we could experience contact or the world could experience it? And maybe, in my little reality, I'm going to say, that had a big effect.
I'll give you a yes. I'm feeling it.
But the most important thing, and it sounds, I can feel the energy just in this conversation, is to be excited about the concepts of contact, not to have an expectation of how it's going to look, but by playfulness, fun, because these energies are,
Yes.
they are just excited. My interaction yesterday, Gavin bringing through these beans, they were so excited to be having a conversation in that, even in the channeling state, in that way. So many beings on the other side of the veil that are so excited to have us communicate. They also don't have expectations on how it's going to look or feel. It doesn't have to be in a physical sense. We can, look for those signs, look for the everything from, nature communicating to us through, through animals, or through clouds, or through, even a tree, or the wind blowing a certain way. All of that is the universe, i.e. these beings, i.e. other versions of ourselves, connecting with us in these subtle ways, to give us nudges to be more in tune, to let go of this, like you were saying, is this my human self trying, projecting? Are those just clouds? What is, you start questioning that. And that's good. We need that questioning so we can have one foot in this reality, so we can still communicate with our brothers and sisters in this realm, because, we're all in this together. And we don't want to completely leave them behind and go completely out there in those worlds. So it's good. It's a good, healthy thing to have some skepticism, and to have that. But when you're in Shasta with your groups, you don't need to have, you're all on the same page. You're all syncing together. You're all focused on contact. You're not trying to disprove this phenomenon to anybody else, so there's no need. I mean, you're going to have a camera crew. And what I've noticed is cameras are interesting, because I'm always a cameraman. I'm always,
yes, you are,
and everything. More things happen when the cameras are off.
Good to know.
So, and I think this is just because the camera is sort of a doorway, and it's sort of having that foot in this world. And I see it as they are, in a sense, a window into other worlds, but it's a technology that's based in this reality.
That makes sense.
So when it's on, you're sort of, it's almost like a beacon, a grounding beacon into this reality. So shut it off.
Yep.
It's like the permission slip to go bonkers, which happened to me in Hawaii. I was filming the whole event and everything, and there was one night that I was like, okay, I'm going to document this, and then one of the people said they didn't feel comfortable, and I said, you know what, that's fine. We don't have. We've had the cameras on this whole time. We don't have to have the cameras on. That night was the most bonkers, crazy night that we had, and I was just like, oh my God. We were like, well, what if we had the cameras on that? And I'm like, I don't think we would have had the same experience.
Yeah.
Because
I feel you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cameras, in a sense, are anchors to this reality. So play with the cameras. Just know that you don't have to have them on the whole time.
Okay. That feels good. Thank you for that. And that makes perfect sense too, because they do tether us into this realm. And that's what we're wanting to bridge into, to release ourselves from.
Exactly. We want to go beyond. But we also want to bring back stuff from that other realm, so we can share it with our brothers and sisters here in this realm, who may be the skeptics, who may need that physical, that tangible, light in the sky. So just play with it, feel into it. Have them on sometimes, don't have them on. And I kind of regret going back to the retreat. I'm like, oh, I had them on every night. We were doing CE5s, stars, and I was like, oh man, some of those nights I should have just said no cameras, and some of the nights, have them on to just document that we're doing that, but maybe not document the entire experience. So, but yeah, the playfulness, the no expectations of what it's going to look like.
Okay.
Some people, what I've noticed on these things is a lot of people in dream. You pay attention to your dreams.
Yes.
and then do dream sharing in the morning.
Yep.
Which and many people will have synchronized dream experiences. They may not be exactly the same,
Yes.
but you look at the archetypes and the experiences that come through. There's a similar storyline that's being told through the dreams and through meditation experiences. So just have fun.
That's part of what they told me. The ships outside last week told me, as I was bringing in downloads of how do I show up and prepare and lead while we're there in Shasta, but also preparing ourselves, our physical bodies, our spiritual bodies, our emotional bodies for this experience. And they brought into my awareness almost instantaneously the importance of working with dream time. Because we're only going to be there on the mountain for 5 days. That time that we spend asleep is truly just as important as the time that we are spending awake, maybe even more, because more can come through during that time. Absolutely. So the guides were downloading in me some sessions of teaching on dream work through the Akashic Records. So our experience is more about going into the Akashic Records and downloading, extracting information, and we're calling in the guides and the beings to help support us through that process. So we have a little bit of a, it's not really a mixed intention, but I'll say going for contact was not the original intention of going to Mount Shasta. The Lemurians came forward to me, revealing themselves as inner earth architects, showing me that there was knowledge from Mount Telos and this civilization that wanted to be actualized on the surface, and that this would start bringing that mode of connection to bring this knowledge back to the surface. And then all of a sudden, this next layer came in. Well, the Ascended Masters are going to come in and help you do it, Emily, by the way. And I'm like, all right, bring it on, but I don't know what all this looks like. So in some of the research that I've done from Dr. Greer and some other people, the importance of being pure-hearted coming in, seeking this information for the highest good of ourselves and everyone connected to us as the collective evolution continues to unfold. The no expectations was a really powerful one. And then everybody setting clear intentions too, of why we are calling in the guides to help us and what it is that we are hoping and dedicating ourselves to accomplishing here on the planet.
Yeah. What I've noticed a lot is our individual journeys have such a powerful impact on the collective. Especially if you're keeping that in mind, you know, follow you 100% go for your individual journey. Why are you doing this? But simultaneously know, you know, and a big key for me in all of this has been integrity. So integrity means so much. For me, integrity, what it really means is having the awareness of the collective, having awareness of everything from nature to our ET brothers to our global family of what does it mean to be a living entity, or a sentient being, or even non-sentient. I mean, whatever your labels, I think everything is sentient, but whatever you label sentient or non-sentient, just everything has its place.
Yes.
And you as an individual, desiring certain things or certain experiences or whatever, but that's like number one most important. But then knowing that whatever you do, you're affecting and having, there's this push-pull with everything around you. And that, to me, that's integrity. That awareness and that that for me, it's a constant, I constantly seek out that awareness. How am I affecting this? If I do this, how am I affecting that? What is this? What is this person, from feelings to actual physical implications of you know, buying this thing from the store and consuming this product, or how to, you know, having that greater awareness, to me is integrity, and operating with that awareness and making choices and following your desires with that awareness in mind actually will speed up your own personal desires.
Yes.
Because there's been cases where I thought, well, if I take this path, I might be having some sort of negative impact on this person or this thing, but I could get to what I want faster. Like, that's in my mind. That's how I think. That's how it's presented to us initially. And then what would happen is then I select, okay, no, that would be out of integrity for this person or this thing, so I'm not going to choose that path. I'll just hold off. I'll be patient. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to follow that desire to go get this thing. And then what happens, usually 9 times out of 10, actually I'd say 10 times out of 10, is another path opens up that I couldn't see before because I was so hyper focused on, oh, this has got to be the way, that I can actually achieve my original desire in a much faster way and with integrity. I just couldn't see that path because I was so sort of hyper focused on this way. So trust that acting in integrity or using integrity as a guidepost for your choices will actually open up the doors to better not only your own path, but also help the collective or help other people achieve, what they need to achieve and everything else in a much more cohesive, friendlier, environmental friendly, personal friendly, family friendly, all this way. And you'll get there actually, from my experience, much faster than trying this, to force your own opinion or your own way to get your way, so to say.
I love that. That's one of my favorite things in the world, is when something that was previously unseen because of my hyper focus becomes seen. It's like magic. It's like all of a sudden you realize. Do you ever have those dreams where you keep finding rooms in your house?
I don't think I have. That's good. That's fun.
I love them. I'm like, where did this room come from? Where did this room come from? And I love it when my life and my awareness allows me to have a similar experience. Everything that I needed, all the pieces, all the components were right there, but it took a certain environment within me in order to be able to see it.
And I say that in using that when you go to Shasta for your experience, pay attention to the group, because you're going to have that group dynamic is actually what I learned at my last retreat. It's so important. And you're going to have different archetypes and different people with different desires and just be open and let it flow. And, you're going to have your schedule for events and things. Be flexible with that schedule, be flexible with the desires and needs and wants of the collective and the group and the individuals, and pay attention to all of that. Obviously, it's still your show, so you still call the shots, but it's going to be interesting to go in it with that sense of integrity for the group and the group collective. And this last group that I did, it was only, I think we had just 12, 13 people, and it was nice and small and compact, and we could really by the end of it really get a sense for where everybody was at. And it's going to be an exercise of not only just contact, but that group dynamic, and integrating those energies and desires and wants of everybody. Some people are going to want the physical experience, and some people will be okay with the, just seeing lights in the sky. And some people you may not get any of that, and just have simply downloads through the dreams. And through your own personal meditations.
It's awesome. Thanks for schooling me about how to take care of everybody out there.
I'm sure you're already there. I'm just like reiterating what I'm just.
No, it's good stuff.
I'm reminding myself in a sense.
I love it. No, that's what I wanted you to come on. School us. Tell us how to be most in the frequency. All right. So let's recap, everybody. Me as a leader, I'm going to be tuning into the consciousness of the space all the time to make sure that we are addressing the needs and the energies that want to come through, because it might look different. than the probably 45 to 50 hours now that I have been planning all of the little details for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in a place of being really playful. I love being a powerful leader, but having that playful nature, I think it's so important. So thank you for acknowledging that and reminding me to the importance of it. And then for the guests, all of you coming, Melinda and Tammy, I see Melinda and Tammy are here. Those are two of our guests coming. I don't see anybody else in-house right now. So if you're in-house, identify yourself. But for those of you who will be joining us on this most sacred experience, remember, get excited as well. Our galactic family is just as excited to meet us as we are to all come together. Many of us, Reuben, who will be on this trip, have known each other for many years virtually and never experienced
that's awesome.
that one-on-one hug with each other. And you know, this work, you do spiritual work, you do life-transforming work with people, you get very close. These people. So just as excited as we are to all connect and to hold each other in this frequency, our galactic brothers and sisters are excited for that too. And no expectations. It's a great conversation today to talk about. They show up in clouds. They show up in dreams. They show up by channeling through other people. They just show up by giving you downloads in your mind and your awareness. So be ready for whatever experience, in whatever way they decide to show up in your own experience.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Any last words for us, friend, before we wrap up today? Where can people connect with you if they want to be part of your fan group?
My website, well, I have a personal website that sort of encompasses what I am, Reuben Langdon, as far as the actor, performer, and documentarian.
Did you make that documentarian, or is that a real word?
I think it might be a real word. I've used it a few times now. I think it is. And that's ReubenLangdon.com, ReubenLangdon.com. And then my show, Interview with Ed, one word, all one word.com, is the website for the show. That's growing very rapidly. I've got an amazing webmaster, Aluna, who's working on that. And we're going to be doing the glossary and more bonus feature stuff and content on that. So that's getting, I sort of had to put all my focus on just delivering the series.
Yeah.
So the website got behind, but now that the show's aired and it's been out, now we're working on sort of revamping the website and really pushing that out. And you can reach out to me personally through either Reuben Langdon or Interview with Ed, social media. I'm taking a little break right now. I post things here and there, but I'm not really checking any of it. I'm keeping it active so I can get messages and do that. I'm just not looking at the news these days because it got a little overwhelming and the polarity game got a little too intense for me to put any focus there. I think these types of conversations and you know what you're going to be doing in Shasta and this is the conversation that I think people are going to be navigating towards anyways, unplugging from the polarity game. So yeah, more interdimensional, extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional discussions and interactions and
yes.
And I call it the third choice. The
yes.
You know, 1 + 1 = 3. It's not all about this or that. It's when you take this and that and you put them together, you get a whole nother experience that's unimaginable when you integrate those two experiences, and you can find that middle road.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I am Emily Harrison, founder and director here at the Akashic Academy, and mentor to visionaries, you thought leaders, you difference makers who are ready to unleash your genius and learn to access infinite intelligence. So please reach out if you are ready for a quantum expansion that will leave you with direct connection to all of the wisdom in the universe. I want you to reach out to me. I also want you to make sure, like I said, you get on Reuben's fan list. follow the shows that he is doing on Gaia, as well as check out all of his archived material. Just listening to it is an activation and has activated me so much along the way. So I thank you very much, my friend, for not only being a part of my journey, an unseen part of my journey. You didn't realize how big of a part of my journey you were until today.
Awesome.
And thank you for being a part of everyone here's journey as well, and sharing the knowledge. Guys, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you back here again.
Thank you.